You're listening to the Bear in Mind Podcast, episode 138.
A podcast that breaks it down so you can break the cycle for good. Now, your host, Tara Rama, but you can call her T.
This is part 2 of 4 simple steps to stop yelling for good. And I'm covering steps 3 and 4, so go back to the previous episode for steps 1 and 2. And these steps is kind of where everyone wants to start. And this is where I wanted to start. And I see this when I work with my clients and they're trying to stop doing something, they all want to start at this point, the meat of it. And when you go through the first steps, you will be in a place to take action consistently. Because a lot of times, and I talked about this in a recent episode about sticking to the plan, is that sometimes we drop a plan. But here is you are starting to understand what is happening with your emotions, and you're starting to gain that insight, and you're not beating yourself up, that there's kind of this momentum built, and that momentum keeps you because you've handled step number 1, which is releasing the guilt, and 2, authorizing your anger. Those 2 things are often kind of the things that are blocking that kind of consistent action that you want to be taking. And that consistent action is going to drive you to get that permanent change. And then voila, the next permanent change is to stop yelling. So let's get started. Step number 3 is Sherlock the anger. Please don't laugh at me at that. I try to make it catchy. So Sherlock the anger, this is where you investigate it. Now, you are more likely to investigate it when you've done steps 1 and 2. So the episode Authority Anger, which is 129, I actually talk about this step after you've stopped resisting anger. I talk about the details of the step there. I will refer to the details here as well. And then 131 is why breathing exercises don't work. Because in Authority Anger, step number 2, we're resisting, and now that's about allowing the motion. So when you have gone through that, releasing the guilt and authorizing your anger and being okay with that emotion and processing that emotion, now you can look at Sherlocking the anger, investigating, gaining insight about your anger, gaining insight about the root cause of why you're habitually feeling angry. And you can look at it from a place of curiosity rather than that place of guilt, beating yourself up. You can start to open up your brain to look at it as almost, not quite, almost an objective person. So what you do here is you give yourself permission to yell, and I suggest starting that, and this is what help you gain the authority on anger, is that you allow the anger in small steps. So I say allow it for 1 hour each day, the hour that is most difficult where you feel like you are consistently yelling at your partner or your kids. And then what you do the next day, this is where you Sherlock the anger. After understanding you've processed the guilt, you've processed any sort of resistance, and you've allowed your anger, is that you look at that and then you do 2 things and you start to track it. One is tracking it with this 2 pieces of information for 14 days. And now this is where if you continuously track it for 7 days and you don't do it on the 8th day, you can pick up again on the 9th day and track it as your 8th data point. So it's get 14 data points. So you're Sherlocking the anger to get these 14 data points. And what you're going to do the next day is you're going to, 1, write down if you yelled or if you didn't yell. And the second thing you're going to do is to fill in the blank to the sentence. I felt blank. What was the emotion? You can just say bad, sad, mad, glad. You don't have to get emotionally intelligent and exact and nuanced. If you know those emotions, then great. Write them down, but frustrated, anger, mad. And then I felt frustrated because, and then finish that sentence, add in another sentence. 2 sentences. That's it. Now, this is where people want to start. And they say, okay, this is the plan. Now, if you find yourself starting here at step number 3, and you have a hard time filling in that information 24 hours after it happened, and you find yourself going back into guilt, feeling bad, and all of those things that I talk about in steps 1 and 2, go back to step 1 and 2, and that's okay. You may find that even after you think you've been in steps 1 and 2, that you need to go back. Now, this does not mean you're going backwards. It still is you're going forward, even if you have to look at releasing some more guilt, because you are actually strengthening your ability to understand your emotions and dig deeper into why you feel guilty, dig deeper into why you feel bad being angry, why you don't authorize yourself to feel an emotion that is 100% human. It'll strengthen that understanding of yourself, which will only then strengthen your ability to stop yelling, even to stop doing other things and behavioral changes. So it isn't going backwards, it's going back to step 1 and 2 and strengthening yourself. So then that's what you do, get 14 data points, and then you have that information. So then that comes the 4th step, which is reflection before detection. Now I like that one better. It rhymes. And reflection before detection means this is often where a lot of information we get about stop yelling and things is we want to be able to stop ourselves in the moment, and we work at stopping the yelling in the moment. Now, if you catch yourself yelling and you stop yelling, yes, that is really great. What we try to come at it and work at it is we try to stop the yelling in the moment, thinking that this is going to help us stop the yelling permanently. And that is not actually how it works, because I've tried. And so reflection before detection means reflection is just as powerful as noticing something in real time. Now, I'm going to say that again. Reflection is equally, I'm not even going to say just, reflection is equally powerful as real time. It has brought me so much clarity when I have been able to look at something I did yesterday from this place of curiosity, not beating myself up. And then when I continuously do this, so when you get the 14 data points, get some of that information, you have a moment when it does happen in real time and you can see yourself, you can see your brain working. And that only happens when you've opened up your brain, when you've opened up space and you're not mentally exhausting yourself from steps 1 and 2. You will then be able to see it in real time. I can see myself getting my anger building when my kid starts to do something, and that becomes the slower space for me where it wasn't. It was right away react, yell, say something that I regretted, and it was like there was no space. The only way I got space was through reflection. Reflection is powerful. It is equally as powerful as detection in that moment, detecting your anger in that moment. When you have that deeper understanding, after you get those 14 data points, I feel this because, and then you fill in that blank. In 14 days, you will be able to see some sort of pattern. Now, I also say when you, going back to Sherlocking the anger, is that you also track if you yelled or didn't. And I want you to say, I feel happy because, and you do this so that you can understand that you can manage your anger. There are going to be times when you don't, and that is the person that you want to become more consistently of, that person, and looking at it with also some curiosity and say, hey, I didn't yell today because, and understanding some of those emotions that you want in your life to be more habitual, not 100% of the time, that's not what I mean, but more habitual. It also gives you some of that clarity in what you want and how to go about it, and insight and what's driving that. So I'll wrap up. Step number 3 is Sherlock the anger. You track it for 14 days and you say, if you yell, you didn't yell, I felt, the next day you put this in, I felt blank, whatever the emotion, because, and then you finish it off with a sentence or two. And then the fourth step is to reflect on all of your 14 data points. Try to see some patterns in some of those emotions that you're experiencing, both emotions, the positive and the negative, and start to understand those patterns. And you will be able to get some insight into what are some of those beliefs, how you view why you're angry, how you view why you're happy. You'll be able to see what is driving those emotions and see those patterns. And then that reflection will be so helpful in real-time awareness. That's all I have for you this week. I'll check back with you next.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.